What's better between a Mercedes EQC, a Jaguar I-Pace or a BMW iX3? Well, keep watching to find out. So let's start with the Mercedes EQC. The car has an overall elegant and sophisticated stance which is not futuristic as many of the electric cars and the EQC's competitors, but it's sort of more like Mercedes' existing SUVs, but at the same time it's more elegant than those. So at the front, the headlights sort of integrate with the grille and sort of has a sweeping design which is very nice to look at. And at the side there's a curvier roofline and more narrow window openings than on the likes of the Mercedes GLC. It's a similar story inside, where the Mercedes EQC doesn't look or feel radically different from any other Mercedes on sale. Sure, you get some neon blue details, which as you'll find is a common theme with electric cars, and a set of square air vents in place of the round turban-like items in most cars. The metal switches on the center console and dual screen infotainment system look just like those in the GLC, which is not necessarily a bad thing, as it's a nice and modern design without being too futuristic and therefore too hard to use. The infotainment system itself is very easy to use and in my opinion is actually better than the iPace and the BMW iX3's infotainment systems. The central display works as a touchscreen. There's also a touchpad on the center console, which is a good thing, because if the car relied only on the touchscreen then it would be incredibly hard to use while driving. The system's main thing, however, is the high Mercedes voice control feature, which understands commands said in plain English. I mean, it's not going to understand something like typography, but if you say, "Hey Mercedes, take me to McDonald's," then, well, it will understand you. Also, the EQC has a roomy cabin for 4 adults, so there's more than enough space for them to stretch out, and each seat has ample support to help you feel as fresh as possible even after a very long drive. Unlike in some SUVs, you have sort of angled rear seating positions. However, one thing with the Mercedes is behind the Jaguar I-Pace is its boot. It's 500 litres, which is by no means small, but the I-Pace gets an even larger boot than that. However, there's still space for quite a few things, and it's more than enough for a family's needs day to day. Now it's time to talk about the range. Mercedes says that the EQC will go 255 miles between full charges. It will take you around 75 minutes to get to 80% charge on a 50 kWh fast charger when out and about, or nearly 13 hours using a 7 kWh charger at home. For some context, charging fully from empty at home will cost you around £12, which is some £18 cheaper than getting the same range from the average petrol car. All that said, the EQC has shaped up to be a very good car. Now, can the Jaguar I-Pace compete with it? Well, let's find out. Well, the I-Pace. Now, Jaguar has always been a sort of sporty brand, with its cars always being the better ones to drive than their competitors, and the I-Pace is no exception. Starting with the looks, the I-Pace looks sporty. It conveys the word sport in its looks. I mean, has a sloping roofline, it has an aggressive stance, an aggressive front. The wide grille, even though it's an electric car, further signifies this point. Also, the angular headlights and the wide gaping bumper mean that this is one hell of a good looking car. It's a similar story at the back, where the I-Pace has a spoiler and a very steeply raked rear windscreen. And then there's a sort of a boot lip, and then there's a flat surface. So all of this adds to the sportiness, and it feeds in to the Jaguar brand of being sporty. Inside, the sporty theme continues with the thin and sporty looking steering wheel, and also you have 3 screens. One is instead of the analog dials, the digital driver's display. The second one is the main infotainment screen, and third one is the one you use for the climate controls. And interestingly, below the third screen there's a very interesting design. There's a gap where you can put storage, and on either side there are buttons, and this is quite a distinctive design. It hasn't been done before in cars and really works with this car. As for the screens, well, they are responsive. They have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay as standard. However, they're not as good as the ones in the Mercedes or even the BMW. Space in the back seats of the I-Pace is pretty generous for 2 adults. However, 3 adults sat across is more of a squeeze and is generally avoided. At least the Jaguar's boot is very roomy. It's 100 litres more than the BMW iX3 or Mercedes EQC, which is something that wouldn't be said of Jaguars of past, which is because they focus on sportiness and not on practicality. However, this car is sporty as well as practical, which is a win-win situation for it. Jaguar claims the I-Pace will do 298 miles between charges, which is much better than the EQC. And as things stands with the UK charging infrastructure, spending 60 minutes using a public 50 kWh fast charger is enough for a 668 mile range, while a full charge takes around 13 hours from a household wall charger, and it will only cost you around £13. If you use a standard 3-pin socket, however, a full charge will take you days and not hours. So it's much better to invest in a 7 kWh household wall charger and save yourself a few hours on the charge. Now, the BMW has a very hard challenge in front of it, as its 2 competitors, the Jaguar and the Mercedes, are excellent cars. So, will the BMW be able to win back some ground, or will it be left in the dust? Find out now. Well, the iX3 looks just like the X3, and that's good and bad. Well, it's good because the X3 is not a bad looking car, and therefore the iX3 is not a bad looking car. However, it's a bad thing because you can't differentiate easily between the X3 and the iX3. But BMW has thought of that, and here are a few things that they have done to differentiate it. For one, the front grille is blanked off in the iX3, so people can tell that this is the electric version. And at the side, BMW have put a thin blue line across towards the downside of the car to indicate that this is electric, and also the sides of triangle thingy has an iX3 on it, again to remind people that this is electric. Also, it can't be seen in the picture, but the iX3 has some distinctive alloy wheel designs which again differentiate it from the standard BMW X3. Also, at the back where the exhaust would normally be, BMW has stuck on some very nasty and tacky looking blue bits of plastic to indicate that this is the iX3, and obviously you have the iX3 badging, and normally that would be X3. And moving on to the inside, and again it's just like a normal BMW X3, apart from the blue starter button, the blue bits on the BMW badge and the steering wheel, and the blue surround for the gear lever, and the iX3 badging sort of in the center console. Let's talking about the design. Well, the design is not bad, but it's not brilliant either. It's starting to show its age. This design has been in use for BMWs for well over a decade with some minor improvements, and if BMW want to remain competitive for a much longer period of time, they need to do something about this interior because it's starting to show its age. One area, however, where the interior can't be faulted is for its technology, And on the picture you can see the digital driver's display of the BMW iDrive 7. However, the infotainment system overall is brilliant. It's a touchscreen system as well as a touchpad, and it's fast, responsive and bright screen, and it has everything you'd ever need. It has Android Auto now and Apple CarPlay as standard. Both are wireless, whereas in the other cars the Android Auto is wired only. And in the back seats the iX3 is roomier than the standard iX3 because there's no transmission tunnel underneath the floor to eat into the space. However, it's still not as roomy as the Mercedes EQC, but it's not far behind. Coming to the boot space, and it's the same as you get in a Mercedes EQC. However, it's worse than the Jaguar I-Pace, but you do still get 500 litres, which is more than enough for your everyday needs as a family. Finally, we come to battery and range, and the iX3 has an 80 kWh battery pack that gives a range of 285 miles, which is right in the middle of the EQC and the I-Pace. The I-Pace is better and the EQC is worse. And if you use the super fast chargers, you can get 80% recharge in just 34 minutes, and this means you can add around 60 miles of range in 10 minutes. However, there aren't many of these super fast chargers in the UK, but the network is growing. However, if you charge from a home wallbox charger from empty, it will take around 12 hours to fill the battery, and this will cost you around £13 per charge, which again is significantly less than the equivalent diesel or petrol car. Well, all three cars are fairly evenly matched. If you look at range, then you go for the Jaguar is better. However, if you look for interior space and interior style, the Mercedes EQC is better. Or if you look at exterior style and if you want practicality and decent range, well, the BMW is your pick. So the deciding factor between these cars will be the price, and the iX3 costs from £61,900. The Mercedes EQC costs from £65,720, which is £4,000 more than the iX3, and the Jaguar I-Pace costs from £65,195. Keeping that in mind, the BMW is significant £4,000 on average cheaper than the two other cars, and therefore it wins this test. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share. See you next week. Goodbye.